Uh, okay. I finished. I was just reading the Bible in another section, another video, and I'm not. I would call myself still maybe like a school age child in Christ right now. I have not read the. I've read many sections of the Bible, but not the Bible completely. But this is not related to that. This is really to read the works that I wrote while I was a PhD student at the University of Arizona Global Campus, and also defend my intelligence, um, because I guess people think that I've been dumbed down, but whatever. I'm trying to ignore it and just move forward. So this one's called Multiracial Students and the Achievement Gap, an argument for a culturally competent curriculum in the social justice paradigm. I believe, I'm not sure if I actually read this one online before, but I looked through the videos and I did not see the title. So I'm hoping this is not a repeat, but I'm always into 8 shows a week. So this would be my second in a month or two. Okay, it starts. Mixed race students are often forced to negotiate their position within the academic career, social, and even familial village in order to succeed. Educators who are able to show empathy for and support the success of the student because of their differences in culture, sexual orientation, age, and socioeconomic status will be able to help students by selecting curriculum that encourages and quote extends I can't even say it, cultural respect. So you want it to extend cultural respect by selecting literature that may embrace different cultures. Um, Educators should utilize a culturally competent curriculum that eliminates force in these areas, that does not force students to choose between races, that does not force students to choose a racial orientation. And I use that word orientation. So they might choose to embrace a white culture more than a black if you're biracial, or vice versa. Um, that does not force students to choose to identify with a particular race or racial group. The culturally competent curriculum moves towards social justice and educational and achievement equity. It encourages a more liberal identification that is not necessarily linked to race, but could have more to do with special interests without racial identification. In a personal setting, the ultimate focus should be on self interests without threat of harm. So when I'm saying personal, but also professional, and any like free market setting too. I strongly believe that people should be able to make choices about what they listen to, watch, read, without the threat of being hurt by anything that they're um, using as a consumer or as a buyer in the open market. So especially when that person may not be guided, if they're not understanding of symbols that may be associated with things that could be dangerous. If it's open and out there and available, and you're purchasing it and giving money which can be used anywhere in the world, to this particular entity, whatever it is, an artist maybe, that you shouldn't be threatened by it in any way, and you shouldn't be a victim in any way of for listening. From a professional perspective, the focus would be on career skills instead of race, and over time lead to greater career success and pay equity. Why closing the achievement gap will bring about social justice too. Okay, I'm sitting. kind of casually on, and I've lost my Berkeley letters over time. This sweatshirt is like from 1990. A closer identification with federal law allows Americans to express themselves freely as required and guaranteed by the Constitution, which is the best standard by which to teach. In fact, you have to take an oath when you are teaching in a district in California that you will follow all the rules and laws of the Constitution when you are teaching. Freedom of expression is guaranteed under the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights, Constitution 1789, 1791, as is equal protection under the law, 14th Amendment of the Constitution, 1866, 1868. The right to a free public education is guaranteed as well, a Constitution of California, 1789. Culturally competent curriculums build upon Brown versus the Board of Education and the Civil Rights Act. And Brown overturned Plessy based on the fact that, and I'm not a lawyer, okay, this is like my constitutional law class. I took constitutional law at UC Berkeley in 1989. I should have pulled out my transcript. And I took 2 law classes actually, but one was at Berkeley and one was at the University of Michigan. And I did some research, I think, while I was at Michigan, because I do recall being at the law library at the University of Michigan, which is an amazing, incredible library. But the Plessy versus Ferguson allowed for separate but equal classrooms, and Brown basically found that the separate and equal classrooms were inherently unconstitutional because they were unequal. They were not equal. There were books. They were in buildings that were dilapidated. There weren't any enough books for children to read. I'm not exactly sure about the teaching style or the teaching during that time, but I'm guessing that may have been affected based upon the environment in which the students were learning. So an inherently equal classroom would include inherently equal curriculum content. So I'm arguing for a culturally competent classroom that you would have, you would be incorporating curriculum or books and videos and audio that would be about the particular culture, or that would diversify the learning in the classroom. Okay, so educators need to understand mixed race students in order to understand their contribution and create a system of equality and equity that does not exist for some students. It is important to understand inequity in order to build equity that may be useful in the future and should not require mediation nor negotiation. So I took a class when I was at one of the state schools in California, and it talked a lot about negotiating your reality. And that would not, as a student, you shouldn't really have to do that. You should, your culture should be embraced, and your need for literature that talks about the needs of the culture, the traditions of the culture, the history of the culture should be available, and you shouldn't be arguing for it or having to fight for it. Okay, so recognizing the importance of a community and differences in people within the community will assist students in collaboration and communication with one another. Culturally competent curriculum, closing the achievement gap. A culturally competent curriculum can close the achievement gap by providing the resources necessary for students who need them. There are students whose SES, social economic status, does not enable them to achieve to the standards or expectations that they set for themselves or to educational standards due to social, psychological, economic, and other issues. A culturally competent curriculum is necessary whether the achievement gap is large or small. With a curriculum that focuses on student's background, and a mentorship program matching students with an older student or professional who is culturally competent and has knowledge of the legal and economic challenges students face, they will succeed. Okay, I do kind of remember talking about this before, so this may be a repeat, but you might be enlightened by something new that I'm thinking related to it. I recall when I was um, working as an administrator at a university in California, um, that I won an award for uh, a um, a student mentorship program for biracial students, and other students of color who may be somewhat challenged in their um, not in their enrollment, but in their ability to fit in within a particular community. So there would be a student who would be matched with someone who's older and may have a similar background as the student to get them through their 4 years or 5 years or however long you're going to take. Um, a curriculum or a program like this can move into the faculty and staff hiring practices in which a staff member or who's been there for a long period of time or a faculty member can kind of assist the new staff member in becoming a, a more embraced member of the community. I'm using really simple vocabulary, but that's basically um, what the hope is that when you're hired on, that you're going to stay on and you're going to sort of be mentored in. And um, they call it in television, they call it I don't really like the word grooming, but sometimes people are hired in like as an intern and then they're groomed into an anchor spot. So but that's a little bit different, and this is more like a mentorship, so you're providing more support and guidance when you're in a collegiate setting. Okay, so classrooms implementing a culturally competent curriculum and mentorship programs will help the child develop a whole understanding of the subject matter, providing a more confident and successful student who will set and achieve career goals. How culturally competent curriculum can bring about social justice. An example of an activity an educator might use in a classroom that illustrates culturally competent curriculum. Video journaling about racist or anti inclusive incidents that occur in the classroom or on campus that affect school performance might help students understand the racial pressures, discriminatory incidents, and microaggressions that lead to mental distress and poor performance. It might also generate discussion about ways to solve some of these problems when they are shared and discussed in an open forum with other students. So, not a lot of that really occurs on the staff or faculty level, but I think for students, it's really important be to be verbal about some of the incidents and pressures that are going on. I just thought of something within the collegiate environment. I just something just flashed in my head about a black staff and faculty organization that did actually talk a little bit about racial pressures and discriminatory incidents and microaggressions that do occur among staff members and faculty in this particular institution. Um, some of them are serious and violent, actually. So it's good to be aware of the type of environment that you're working in, and study, and being able to receive guidance going through that from the appropriate person, I think is really important. Um, Video journaling home and after school lifestyle to introduce to students some of the conversations and activities that go on about family, school, life, and the way these challenges affect study habits to determine what will make learning easier is another could be another aspect of that. I mean, that gets to more personal, I think, but it would be interesting to talk, to have access to the conversations, and I put the activities that go on in your family life that may affect how you learn in school from a positive and a negative perspective. Okay, so understanding the differences in culture and showing empathy will lead to less discrimination in the classroom, in discussions, projects, and grading. Okay, population focus, race issues, social justice solutions. Multiracial students are faced with the expectation by teachers and peers that students will join one race or another in cultural choices. However, statistically, issues like this do not appear to affect testing or achievement when compared to Caucasian students. So, um, this is sort of I sort of jumped from, that's kind of a big jump in from sentence to sentence with when I need to, and it needs to be developed a little bit. I think that I won't comment more on that at this point, but I might develop this idea a little bit more in my if I write more about this. Right now, I'm sort of writing about my substitute teaching experiences over the last couple of years, and I've tried to introduce the multiculturalism, inclusion, um, multiculturalism, anti-harassment, inclusion, and ethics issues into the classroom. And I've come up with like a curriculum, a short like lesson plan for teaching Mahai in the classroom. And video journaling really hasn't come into play in any of this. And it really requires a lot of a permission slip gathering and approval. But I think it might be an interesting like little um, project, I think, for to do in the classroom. So hold on a second. Okay, so I'm on this. So experiences that mixed race people face are dependent upon the color of their skin and how they are able to negotiate their status within the educational system, and metaphorically their place at one or more of the multiple tables at which they are available to sit. So when I'm referring to that, that's in reference to um, there are plenty of organizations and groups that you can join to sort of augment your own experiences in the workplace and even in the community, and making contributions in the community while you're working, particularly if you're in the public eye like I was. I'm recalling my work as an anchor in my one of my first jobs, and I tried to spend time, although I had a really crazy shift, volunteering in the community. And I sat on a board for a little while, an arts board, and then I also made many speaking appearances or engagement. I had speaking engagements at schools, typically after an overnight shift, which is really quite a challenge. But I still was able to do that. So I think it's really important to be out there in the community and talking with people about your experiences, um, as whatever your racial background is, because there are people in the classrooms in particular that that want to know what the experience is like in whatever career or background you're in, and what it might look like for them in the future. Let's see. Okay. Referring to the myriad of lunch tables. Okay. I'm gonna skip this section because okay, so oh wait, maybe I won't. I'm going to reread this section. Experiences that mixed race people face are dependent upon the color of their skin and how they're able to negotiate their status within the educational system, and metaphorically their place at one or more of the multiple tables at which they're able to sit, referring to the myriad of lunch tables available in the cafeteria with different groups of students, which typically or stereotypically include a segregated group of Black students. Okay, that's a different kind of table. Okay, so I'm referring to when I was just speaking, I was referring to the possibilities within the community of the types of tables, those tables you can sit at to make a difference within the community. These refer in contrast to the lunch tables, like in the cafeteria, the grouping that sometimes occurs with the Black students sitting in one section and white students in another. I think now I'm not really seeing a whole lot of that at the K to 6 level at all anymore. It's extremely diversified, actually. And I don't really know. I don't really recall like K through 6 whether that was really an issue. I didn't have a cafeteria experience, actually. I was more outside lunch eating, and it was I went to a predominantly white school, so there was I don't recall sitting with a whole lot of Black students at all. But I think that like if you get to college, you're going to see something a little bit different. And my experiences at lunch were always the people I sat with were always, it was a very diversified experience. I didn't really sit with all the Black students um, or even all white students. So in that context, um, um, I don't know if there's a whole lot of negotiation of reality of where you should sit. Um, I didn't feel that pressure. Like I was just like, I'm going to sit with the people that I have some common interests in. I share common interests with whom I share common interests. That's what I meant to say. Not the people who I may not. So it really had more to do with, oh, my battery's dying. With people with whom I share something in common, and not people, not race. So okay. Um, Social justice efforts would include. Wait, I forgot here. Seasons, jocks, Asians, Mexicans, etc. At different tables. Okay. Social justice efforts would include implementing a culturally relevant and competent curriculum, which would include a workshop on multiculturalism, anti-harassment, inclusion, and ethics. Mahai, Taliaferro 2021. Developing a mentorship program would match a mixed race student with a mixed race community leader to start networking and mentoring. Okay. Multiracial study, parental expectations versus culturally relevant curriculum. A study says that the grades of multiracial students are related to their concrete beliefs about the way their parents will treat them as a result of their academic failures, the educational values of their peers, and the racial composition of their neighborhoods and schools. Herman, 2009. This discovery also suggested that a culturally relevant curriculum may not be the only issue that should be addressed related to the achievement of multiracial students. So, um, so even if you have a culturally relevant curriculum that might include literature that addresses or talks about differences in, I don't know, a familial uh, conversation, I don't know, conflict might not necessarily. Oh gosh, I thought I just lost my train of thought. Um, might not necessarily be an issue. Oh my gosh, I just completely lost my train of thought. Okay, so let me just go back over this. A study says that the grades of multiracial students are related to their concrete beliefs about the way their parents will treat them as a result of their academic failures, the educational values of their peers, and the racial composition of their neighborhoods and schools. Okay, so the way that your parents treat your academic failures may be more um, serious, and your response to um, in response to your ability to uh, do better on another exam than the content of whatever you're reading or whatever you're studying. Okay. This discovery also suggests that a culturally relevant curriculum may not be the only issue that should be addressed related to the academic achievements of multiracial students. The psychological effects of the academic pressures associated with the consequences of failure, the loss of support from peers, and the reasoning that the racial composition of neighborhoods and schools are primary factors in the achievement of multiracial students should be examined to develop and maintain support and prolong high levels of academic success among multiracial students. So, there are many factors that contribute to the success of a student, including their own understanding of what they're writing and reading. But I think that you have to consider it's not just race, but socioeconomic status, of what's going on at home, um, what whether or not, okay, if they fail a test, and how they may or may not share it with their friends, how they're going to respond, and whether or not they're going to be supportive, or and have time to offer assistance, or whether or not they can offer an a way that for their friend to get help, um, and choosing the right help is really important too. Right assistance is really important too in your development of your academic profile. Okay, so yeah, let me move her forward here. um oh, okay, that's it. It's been a while since I read my own work. Okay, so if anybody has any questions about this, if you could leave your comments here, or if you have any additional works that might be good references to read up more on this. If you have any criticism, I'd be happy to take it. And I recommend that you review the reference list that I've listed here, um, to learn more about what I've discussed. I look forward to receiving your comments, and I guess that's it for now at 27 minutes and 42 seconds at 8:39 p.m. on April 13th, 2026. Um, let's see if I put, oh no, I didn't include that. Okay, yeah, just go ahead and leave your questions. I hope you guys have a really nice night. And that's all for now.